Hi everyone, welcome to Unplugged, a video series where we bring some fantastic conversations with industry giants. Today I'm at Talabat headquarters sitting with Khee Lim, who is the Senior Regional Director of Logistics. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We want to start first with your experience. Can you talk about your years of experience in the industry and the landscape of the Middle Eastern logistics industry?
Sounds good. So I have been in the food delivery industry for 7 to 8 years right now, spanning across Deliveroo in the UK, Foodpanda in Germany, and more recently Talabat here in the Middle East. I think the industry is super dynamic. It's changed a lot since I first joined, and in a very positive way across the ecosystem and the stakeholders. And I also think that this industry is growing really quickly, since the pandemic, where it became a critical sector. Now it's just something we can't live without.
How would you describe the last mile delivery landscape in the UAE? Like 5 words maybe.
I think convenient. I think reliability. I think bring joy to customers. There you go.
Okay. Okay, so when it comes to Talabat, what are the current operations that Talabat is doing and key area of focus?
So Talabat operates in 8 markets across the Middle East and the North African region. We're a market leader in all of these markets. I think in terms of operations, we are I think the most geographically expansive operations across these 8 markets. In terms of what we deliver not just freshly cooked food from restaurants. We also have a quick commerce sector where you get your grocery needs, your weekly shops from big supermarkets, readily available at your doorsteps, and of course, hopefully, there's more to come.
When we say Talabat, the first impression is usually it's a food delivery app, but the main crux of that is operations, logistics, and supply chain. So how would you describe that?
Yeah.
And what are some key pillars to that?
So yes, we often relate to Talabat as the food app, but I think in general this industry is still quite nascent. We are basically just scratching the surface. So if you think about it, we eat 3 times a day, so that means 90 meals a month. I think I struggle to find any aggregator in the world that has managed to capture a lot of that. So there's a lot more of room for growth. Now, what I find super exciting and complicated about operations in food delivery is that unlike the ride-hailing business, Talabat does a 3-sided marketplace business. So you have your customers, you have your couriers, and you have the restaurant vendors or the grocery vendors at play for each order. So many things can go wrong at the same time. I think therefore it's integral that all parties are well trained. We have the right technology to predict reliably, and also we have the right error detection systems in place to ensure that all orders and all customers are happy at the end of the order.
And also, as you mentioned, that technology is also one of the key elements, right? So
huge.
Technology and data. So what is your perspective on that?
So I think it's a virtuous circle, how we harness data to improve technologies, and then how we use technology to get the right data to further improve these very complex operations. I think for Talabat, because we're part of the Delivery Hero ecosystem, we're blessed with the really good technologies that is provided at our Talabat product and tech teams, as well as the Berlin headquarters, where we also share some common learnings across the other entities that Delivery Hero manages. So I think in that regard, I think all of these entities have slightly nuanced exam questions when it comes to operations, but at the end of the day, we want to be able to deliver the best and the most reliable customer experience, and in a very safe approach and safe way. So on the technology front, I think it's advanced based on my experience in the industry, but there's more to come. From a data perspective, I think that is where it is integral in terms of influencing our operational capabilities, as well as our operational kind of processes and SOPs. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we need to, have proper baselining of data to know when errors do come into play and how do we, save the order. But more importantly, how do we harness data to really fix the fundamentals of delivery safely and reliably? So if I may give you an example, with data, now we are really exploring how can we better, capture and maintain volumetric data of our orders to ensure that A, we don't over-assign heavy orders for riders with the wrong vehicle type, and in fact actually assign heavier orders to, say, larger vehicle types, such that the rider is happy and safer, customer gets all their big orders on time, and we do it in a way that's the most cost efficient and most fleet efficient at the same time. So it's a win-win-win using data.
What is your take on that? How do you understand the right fleet operations, and how do you manage them?
In Talabat, it's more unique. So we work very closely with, we actually only work with logistics partners. So these are third-party companies whom are the formal employers of the courier fleet. So as such, very close coordination and forward-looking demand planning is integral to ensure that we do not overhire or underhire, because it's a very delicate trade-off between their earnings and their stability of earnings versus the customer experience at the end of the day. It is still a lot of fine-tuning across different markets given the very different dynamics. But I think based on my experience so far, I think that local teams has done a fantastic job in managing that.
Are there any expansion plans, or are there any regions that you are seeing in the future to tap into?
Not that I'm aware of Talabat. I think we are very laser focused on sharpening our fundamentals in terms of the stakeholder and ecosystem propositions, and therefore strengthening our market share even more in our already quite competitive battlegrounds.
How does Talabat stay competitive and sharpen their services in terms of the market where you have gazillions of apps and partners that people are using?
I can think of two main ways. I think the first one is going back to the simple fundamentals. Who are our stakeholders? It's customers, it's restaurant partners and grocery partners, it's riders and the logistics partners. Really peeling the layers of the onion to understand what do they really care about and whether Talabat is offering them that. If we do that well and we crack it, I think that's where we have the upper hand. I think the second part is a bit more proactive stance. So we work very closely with the legal teams, with the public affairs teams and the comms team to always stay ahead of the game, because this industry is very dynamic. We have more regulatory players coming in the ecosystem, and it's super crucial that we work with these regulators to chart out what the industry in the next 3, 5, 10 years would look like for not just Talabat but also for the stakeholders involved as well.
Is there any particular story, customer story, or a customer feedback rather, which is close to your heart, and you feel that okay, yes, you hit that jackpot?
We look at customer feedback a lot, mostly verbatims, to understand how we can become better. I think we have had instances when customers receive their orders in less than 10 minutes and it made their day. I think that's super important. I do think that, as I mentioned about the pandemic days, I think food delivery was a critical sector. In times where you are isolated at home, your favorite restaurants arriving at your door, I think sometimes, people don't take that for granted since 2020. So I think that is something that always warms my heart. I think other customer stories that, comes to the top of my mind is, how Talabat also, works closely with the logistics partners and riders to imbue a certain level of professionalism. And you might have seen some social media stories earlier this year where some of the Talabat riders with the logistics partners go out above and beyond to ensure road safety, moving hurdles away from busy roads, just so that the entire environment is safer. So it's quite, there's little things like that. I can't think of like one major story, but I like the environment that we have kind of nurtured so far for Talabat.
Disruptions and challenges from the operation point of view is very fragile. You don't know, anything can happen anytime. So how does Talabat look into such scenarios and take actions towards them?
I think there are multiple degrees of emergencies, I would say. And for those that we can predict or it's more seasonal, like bad weather, I think the teams work very closely to ensure that we always have the safety of the couriers and the vendors first, and manage expectations from the customer when such events happen. So bad weather in Dubai, 10 days a year, but when that happens, everything is flooded. So that's us being proactive and ensuring that we have a good playbook to manage when this happens. I think when you're talking about bigger level like emergencies, be it from a product perspective or others, I think that is where very solid communications and day-to-day collaborations is tested at its best. And thus far, when such instances occur, I think I've really seen how people in the Talabat organization, from C-levels to MDs to operations teams to people on ground, really rally together to solve the problem.
Are there any opportunities that you're seeing in the market right now that you think potentially will be beneficial to Talabat?
There are a lot of opportunities at play. I think with the recent conclusion of GTEx, I think some of my teams have been looking a lot more closely at drones and robot deliveries. I think this is something that I profess I'm not the expert at so far, but I do see the potential value of it in the coming months and years to come. I think we are currently also piloting a few electric vehicles. I think that is the area where it is unlikely to be the main vehicle type in all the 8 markets we operate in due to infrastructural readiness. But in certain developed markets, I think there is opportunities for us to pilot and expand that even more.
So lastly, as you mentioned about e-mobility and drones, where do you see e-mobility shaping the last mile industry in the region?
I think we're at a very interesting phase where a lot of e-mobility or e-vehicles are emerging out of the proof of concept moment. And I think more aggregators and more logistics companies are more open to trialing out and testing at a larger scale. I think Talabat is no different. I think we've launched, some Talabots, the robot deliveries in certain areas of Dubai. We are, invested in, piloting on a larger scale e-vehicles in 3 markets next year. I think so long, in my opinion, courier safety, operations and fleet efficiency, if these are the 3 elements that e-mobility or e-bikes have proven that they are able to match or even be better than existing operations, I think this is an area that I'm personally wholeheartedly happy to dedicate more efforts in scaling up in the coming years.